Hey, 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 everybody. Happy Monday, happy November, and happy Election Day Eve. We are in the midst of maybe the most insane, unpredictable, chaotic 48 hours of modern history in Western civilization. And honestly, I've got a lot to say about it because unlike just accepting the fate and waiting for whatever happens tomorrow, Kamala Harris seems to want to just provide that last little dig into womankind, to desperately attempt to gaslight and manipulate your emotions to get you to vote for her. And honestly, I don't know about you, I have a really big problem with it. So your girl's about to go off this afternoon as we wait for Election Day in a mere number of hours. Before we do that, I just have to say, I think everything looking towards tomorrow is wildly unpredictable. No one in the media is able to give us an accurate prediction of what tomorrow is looking like. All of the polls are telling us completely contradicting information. So if you guys have a prediction, an idea of what you think is going to happen for Election Day tomorrow, go ahead and drop it in the chat and let us know who you are and where you're watching from, especially if you are new around here. As we are getting started with the show today, please do me a huge favor and smash that follow or subscribe button wherever you guys are watching. On YouTube, we are very, very close to our goal of 100,000 subscribers that we set a few months ago, and I'm so grateful for the bonkers growth you guys provided the last couple of weeks. So very, very grateful for all of you. Let's see what you guys are predicting going into tomorrow. Oatsy on YouTube says, I hope that it is Trump. I would like to believe that that is going to happen, but it's looking pretty difficult. Nitty Witty says this is very, very hard to predict. Alex is dropping the Trump dance gif in the chat, which we love to see on Locals. Let's see what you guys think. We've got people watching in Tennessee, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Scotland, South Dakota, St. Louis, Missouri, all over the country. I Stretch Plus says, I'm from New York. Trump needs to win, period. Roskin Jeff says, I'm from Michigan. I think Trump is going to win in a landslide. Lots of people watching internationally as well, which honestly I'm glad about because this conversation transcends the American political landscape. It transcends Trump and Kamala Harris, although largely Kamala is what we're going to be talking about today. It transcends America even, and is really indicative of the conversation of what the modern American left thinks about women. And before I go way too far into my diatribe of complaining that we're about to experience this afternoon, because I have a lot of thoughts that I need to get off my chest, I'm just so insulted, to be honest with you, about how stupid the modern left thinks women are. And maybe there's been a pattern of behavior to suggest that emotions can be manipulated this successfully, to suggest that you can win elections based on blatant lies, propaganda, and misinformation. But I'd like to believe that women are much effing smarter than Kamala Harris gives them credit for. So we're going to be diving into all of that today, largely related to Kamala's and the left's last-ditch effort to win her the presidency by going after and manipulating women's emotions in particular. Before we do that, I could not start the show without showing you guys the funniest clip I've ever seen in my entire life. I have to say, despite all of us having no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, at least the country seems to be laughing a bit at the absurdity of this election, unlike 4 years ago when everything was so serious and none of the comedy sketches were funny and none of the late night people were funny. In a pure stroke of miracle, I saw something truly hysterical dropped by Saturday Night Live this last weekend. I guess it was guest hosted by John Mulaney, who is a really funny comedian in general. But this might be the single most accurate depiction of the American left I could ever have provided to you. Without further ado, SNL from this last weekend.
This is the most important election in American history. Democracy is on the line.
Great.
Just wait.
Our next question is for $300,000. And here to ask it is the man himself.
Hi, I was Hillary Clinton's vice presidential running mate. At the time, you said it was the most important election in American history, and that democracy was on the line. It's been less than 8 years. What's my name?
Hi, it is an honor.
I can't.
You voted for me to be one heartbeat away from the Oval Office in an election more recent than the release of Zootopia. What's my name?
It's not my fault if he was a
So
more memorable
accurate.
guy like Tim Walz.
This is very much a guy like Tim Walz. Let's see them side by side. Wow. Not only does he look exactly like Tim Walz, his name was also Tim.
Really? His name was Tim?
My name is still Tim. I exist. I'm a senator representing Virginia.
Of course you are.
Of course you are.
I'll give you 3 options for what his last name was. Tim Clinton, Tim, or Tim Scott.
Oh, 2 of those don't sound real. I'll go with Tim.
Audience, what's that name?
Tim Scott!
It's Tim Kaine.
Who is?
Me.
Oh. Well, God bless you.
God bless you. It gets better. It gets better.
All right, that was embarrassing, but you know what? Honestly, for me, it's not about the candidates. They come and go. What matters are the real Americans whose lives are at stake.
Great transition. In June of 2020, our country had a racial reckoning. You bravely tweeted the names of 12 victims of police violence with the hashtag #RememberTheirNames, preemptively scolding us for forgetting their names. Pal of mine, if you can remember one of those 12 names,
George Floyd.
besides George Floyd, you'll walk out of here richer than the pharaohs. Give him a 10-minute clock.
Tamika Nolans?
Tamika, New Orleans? Jesus Christ, why not even guess?
This is the most...
Why not even guess? God, that's so funny. I saw that and I've watched it probably like 10 times since I saw that over the weekend. SNL, I don't know where you came cooking with that one, but you ate on that sketch. I haven't seen something that funny on television in a very long time. So I am at least grateful that we can all laugh at the collective absurdity of the path American politics has taken in the last several years. But I wanted to show you that SNL clip on the show first, A, because let's start on a light note. It's funny AF and we should be able to laugh about it. But B, everything I'm about to show you after a late night comedy sketch is just as absurd, but is real in American politics, because this is how ridiculous our political system and elections have become in the last several years, largely related to a singular issue, and that issue being abortion. So what I really want us to focus on today, on Election Day Eve, mere hours away from us potentially, probably not, learning who is winning the election of 2024, is the pathetic, desperate at last attempts of the Kamala Harris campaign and those supporting her within positions of power, the media, super PACs, etc., to frankly buy the votes of women solely based off of our emotions, by manipulating them, by twisting them, by pulling at our heartstrings to lie to us with the most ridiculous, blatant propaganda akin to an SNL sketch, and perhaps the most disgusting behavior I've ever witnessed in American politics. And if you are a woman who happens to be watching this show today and you haven't yet voted, I just want you to make it all the way through this conversation and then make your choice on who you're voting for president of the United States. Because in soul searching just a little bit, I hope you will walk away with the same conclusion I have from Kamala and all of her surrogates. They think nothing of you, less than nothing of you. They assume that you are so stupid, so manipulatable, so emotionally driven that they can convince you to vote with your uterus rather than your brain, based on the most pathetic, hollow, shallow lies I've ever seen in American politics. This really started to surface for me as a theme, a key theme in the last week, coming from the Harris campaign and its surrogates, because this really bizarre group called the Progress Action Fund in the last week or so started dropping super insane advertisements about Republican policy that are not based in truth whatsoever. And it kind of just feels like the Hail Mary pass at the last second of the last quarter of the football game, just trying to throw anything at the wall to see if it sticks. Insane lies to turn out the vote from young people, particularly young women, in the most pathetic way possible. I have to warn you before showing you these clips, they are a bit vulgar, wildly vulgar, but I just need to show them to you because it just goes to show how unbelievably ridiculous the lies are getting to turn out those last-minute votes. The first one I saw, dropped a few days ago, featured a young man holding his phone, engaged in the act of self-pleasure while watching pornography videos before being interrupted by his Republican congressman. Again, warning for how disgusting these are, but this is what's going viral on social media this week to pull at the heartstrings of young people. This one, I imagine, is geared specifically towards young men, but make that judgment for yourself.
Oh! Sorry, you can't do that.
What the hell, man? How'd you get in here?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're banning porn nationwide.
You can't tell me what to do. Get out of my bedroom, you creep!
I won the last election, so it's my decision. I'm just gonna watch and make sure you don't finish illegally.
So that's fun, right? No national porn ban has even remotely been discussed in any way, shape, or form, although individual states have begun banning porn for minors, which is a totally appropriate conversation for us to be having. And frankly, if we look at the evidence, maybe we should be talking about a ban on pornography if we're serious about ending human trafficking, if we're serious about preventing impotence, if we're serious about preventing addiction. We've had that conversation on the show before, and I will be happy to have that conversation 1,000,000 times over. But really, that's what they think of young men, that you'll vote solely because your ability to masturbate in your bedroom might get taken away from you by some old, evil, white man, Republican congressman. These Progress Action Fund videos then took it up another level by dropping a second ad that made me sick to my stomach, literally featuring, essentially, pornography and the argument that Plan B should be banned according to Republican policy, even though no Republican congressman is suggesting banning Plan B. Watch this one.
God, the condom broke.
Oh, I have Plan B in the bathroom.
Great. I'm gonna go get that now.
Sorry, you can't use that.
Who are you?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we ban Plan B.
No, you can't. You can't do this. I can't have a kid right now.
I won the last election, so it's my decision. Now let's get back in there so we can give her the news, Daddy.
So there you go. Again, how little they think of you, that you're having rampant, unprotected sex all the time and desperately need an abortifacient drug, Plan B, available to you over the counter in the United States today, by the way, not needing a prescription, that no Republican congressman is attempting to ban at this point in time. But like what? What? So I'm frustrated by these advertisements. Obviously, they're pathetic. Obviously, they think very little of the degeneracy of youth, because clearly the only thing young people care about is jerking off under the sheets to pornography and or having mass levels of unprotected sex all the time, because that's just what we do as young people. That's what the left thinks of you. But I started to get really pissed, to be honest with you, at the third advertisement dropped by the Progress Action Fund that takes things up another level entirely. And it stopped being somewhat comical and somewhat funny, and instead just turned into blatant propaganda and a clear lie based in misinformation to lie to women about how they should vote, with this third advertisement that then dropped all about abortions. Fair warning, this will piss you off, so just bear with me.
Dr. Davis, what do I do?
John, she needs an abortion, or she's going to die from the pregnancy.
Sorry, that's not happening.
What are you doing? Who are you?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we banned abortion. No exceptions.
You can't do this. She's dying.
I won the last election, so it's my decision. But don't worry, you can still have children, just not with her.
Save her life. Vote November 5th. This has millions, tens of millions of views all over social media, largely on Twitter, where it was originally seen by me and most people that I work with in the content creator space. But I want us to watch this ad again, paid for by the Progress Action Fund, to point out every piece of blatant lie and misinformation present in this propaganda, to just prove to you once and for all how little these people think of women. How little they think of women, period.
Dr. Davis, what?
Woman bleeding, as you can see, from between her legs, writhing in pain on the floor of her apartment or house, indicating that she's probably experiencing a really painful miscarriage and or an ectopic pregnancy, which, for the record, in the United States of America today, is not illegal to treat in any state in the country, even those with what the left would call extreme abortion bans. It is protected by law, in actuality, for a woman experiencing a miscarriage or an ectopic pregnancy to receive proper medical care. Because, newsflash, an abortion, the intentional killing of a child in the womb to then take that child out of the womb through an abortion procedure, is fundamentally different than a miscarriage or ectopic pregnancy in which the child has already died and needs to be safely taken out of that woman's womb. Nowhere in America is it illegal to provide care for a miscarriage or an ectopic pregnancy. But that's the very first visual that they have to give you in this advertisement. This woman is profusely bleeding all over the floor, writhing in pain, clearly is having a miscarriage, but can't get medical care she needs because of those pesky Republican congressmen trying to make sure she dies. Lie number one.
Dr. Davis, what do I do?
John, she needs an abortion, or she's going to die from the pregnancy.
Number two. Lie number two. This is not an abortion. Interestingly, insurance sometimes does bill these things as a spontaneous abortion rather than an induced abortion or an elective abortion. Those are typically the languages that are used within the American insurance, I'll say, scheme, because honestly, the whole situation is just a complete fraud. And that's one of the biggest areas of work that we need to make sure happens in the next conversation about abortion, is labeling these things differently for insurance purposes. But no, an abortion is not what is happening during a D&C. That is not the same thing. A D&C, to safely remove an already deceased child from the mother's womb in a miscarriage, is not the same thing as an abortion procedure. Again, for the record, in case anybody needs the reminder, an abortion procedure, when we're talking about this, means one of two things. Number one, it means the abortion pill, also known as chemical abortion, which is 2 pills actually taken back to back within a few days of one another. The first is taken, and this usually happens very, very early in pregnancy. The later you get, it's very dangerous to take the abortion pill. So when you do this early in pregnancy, you can go to an abortion clinic in certain states. You take the first pill, which essentially cuts off progesterone, hormones, and nutrients to your child to starve your child to death in the womb. You go home, and about 24 hours to 48 hours later, you take the second pill, which induces labor to expel your child from the womb. That's option 1. Option 2, when we're talking about elective abortions, is a surgical abortion procedure, which, not to be incredibly vulgar, but is important for us to talk about, involves sticking a needle about this big into the stomach of the mother through her womb to stimulate a heart attack in the child, typically using a drug called digoxin, which is often used in cardiovascular procedures for surgery. The baby has a heart attack and dies, and then the mother is induced, but with surgical abortions, typically they want to make sure all of the products of conception, aka parts of the child, are removed. So they typically end up dismembering the baby limb by limb to make sure that everything is appropriately suctioned out and nothing remains in the mother's body. In no way, shape, or form is that the same thing as a DNC from a miscarriage. Lie number 2. And we are literally only 6 seconds into this advertisement.
Sorry, that's not happening.
What are you doing? Who are you?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we banned abortion.
Can anyone, a singular person, point to me the RNC Republican Party agenda in which a national abortion ban is even remotely a possibility in the United States today? It's not. And repeatedly, Donald Trump has repeatedly affirmed, even if Congress passed a national abortion ban, he would probably veto that law because he is personally against that particular policy. Now, I would be very open to talking about that policy. I've been very transparent about that. And we can have that conversation again for the zillionth time on the show any other day. But it's blatant fear-mongering to get you to believe, unless Kamala Harris is president or unless the Democrat Party is the majority party in Congress, tomorrow there will be a national abortion ban with lie number 3, no exceptions. No exceptions for miscarriage care, no exceptions for ectopic pregnancy care, which is already the law in every single state with abortion bans. No exceptions for rape, no exceptions for incest, no exceptions for life of the mother, no exceptions for fetal abnormality, which already is the law in every single one of these states. So honestly, I'm just disgusted that in a span of 16 seconds, these 3 blatant lies are being told to young women to get you to believe, unless today and tomorrow you go out of your way to show up to the polls to support someone else with a vagina, this is going to be you. That this is going to be you writhing in pain, dying on the floor of your apartment or your house because women everywhere are dying from abortion bans. And that is the only thing the Republican Party is going to do come January 20th if they win any aspect of this election. That's how little they think of you. And they'll do absolutely anything they can, for the record, using their other levers they can pull in positions of power across culture in the United States to back up these claims with, what's the term we used to use back in the day in American politics? Alternative facts. Love how this comes around on all of us. The same people screaming at you for misinformation and disinformation and why we need to regulate the First Amendment are manipulating the press and the media itself to craft alternative facts based around whatever narrative they want to shove down your throat to make you believe that these insane propaganda hit piece commercials they put out to get you to elect Kamala Harris are based in reality and are not, in fact, propaganda. This ad comes on the heels of a Washington Post article that dropped 6 days ago about a woman in Nevada who allegedly was arrested for having a miscarriage. If that sounds too insane to be true, you are probably hearing that correctly in alarm bells going off that this is obviously not based in reality, but the media would love for you to believe otherwise. 6 days ago, the Washington Post publishes this headline. She said she had a miscarriage, and then she got arrested under an abortion law, with the video of this mother that they are talking about. Quote, why is having a miscarriage a problem? Why is this illegal, apparently? This Nevada woman was charged with manslaughter under a law from 1911. Countless tweets and posts and videos in support of this woman instantly end up going viral, talking about how oppressive the state of Nevada is for criminalizing miscarriages, which is a very common talking point we're hearing a whole lot about in the last couple of weeks. A particular name comes to mind, Amber Thurman, whose story we have debunked over and over and over again here on the show because her tragic death, caused in fact by abortion, was not caused by an abortion ban in the state of Georgia, nor was her death the result of a miscarriage, but was the result of abortion pills themselves. Yet you'll never find any of that covered in the mainstream media because they, run by the same people who are doing everything they can to elect Kamala Harris, have honestly just become mainstream media political talking heads as propaganda arms for the government. At this point in time, there is no differentiation between who is sitting in the vice presidential mansion right now and any piece of publication gone out in the mainstream media come November 4th, 2024. And if this doesn't terrify you, it absolutely should. Because in the wake of the tens of thousands of tweets, videos, posts condemning Nevada's oppressive law, arresting this mother, and criminalizing her miscarriage, the reality, in fact, is a much different story. Because here's what they're not telling you about this Nevada story. This didn't happen 5 weeks ago, as it was portrayed in the media. This mom lost her child in 2018. Well before Roe v. Wade was remotely overturned by the Dobbs v. Jackson decision. And in 2018, here's what actually happened to lead that person, that mom, to be arrested by Nevada authorities. Throughout her pregnancy, she was in fact smoking meth while pregnant. Her baby obviously is impacted by her choice to intentionally smoke meth and do illicit drugs throughout her pregnancy. She is convinced, I don't want another child. I already have several children, so I'm going to take the abortion pill, which she does well past the time that it is relatively safe for either party to do so, and her baby is born at home. The autopsy, later done on the child, revealed that the baby was well past the age of fetal viability, which most experts believe right now is about 21 to 22 weeks and improving with improved medical technology. This baby was estimated to be about 28 to 32 weeks gestational age. She admitted to law enforcement that she did all of this to kill her baby. And law enforcement, after conducting these autopsies, actually believed this child was born alive at home, that the abortion pill failed to end the life of this child, which tends to happen if you do it beyond the gestational age it's recommended for, and then was intentionally killed by this mother, who was then so paranoid that she was going to get in trouble with law enforcement that she buried her child in a shallow grave in her backyard in a plastic bag. Does that sound like a miscarriage to you? Because by literally any definition of what a miscarriage is, that is not a miscarriage. There are countless criminal behaviors, breaking the law, involved in that story. But the headline put out by the Washington Post remains to this day. You can look this article up for yourself. She said she had a miscarriage, then got arrested under an abortion law. This is how freaking little the left thinks of women. Because if anybody reads a headline like that, you immediately are heartbroken. Of course you don't want women to be arrested for something completely beyond their control. Miscarriages happen all the time. In fact, it's estimated today that 1 in 4 pregnancies end in a miscarriage. So statistically, most women may experience one within their lifetime. Nobody wants anybody to be arrested for having a miscarriage. Nobody wants anybody to die from having a miscarriage and doctors failing to act appropriately. So when you hear these stories like this mom in Nevada or Amber Thurman, of course it breaks your heart. And of course it makes you want to do something about it. But quite literally, the bare minimum Google search, the bare minimum amount of research done at all would show you the truth that nowhere in America are women being arrested for having miscarriages. That nowhere in America can a doctor deny you medical care because you are having a miscarriage. That, in fact, is against the law and would be blatant medical malpractice if it ever took place, even in states like Florida and Texas and Georgia and anywhere else with an abortion ban. It is unbelievably pathetic to me. Beyond pathetic. It's the scum of the earth behavior to me to see how much these people are gaslighting women to manipulate our emotions in order to what? Secure a win for an election? In order to lie to us so effectively that we will only vote for another person walking around on 2 feet who happens to also have a vagina? In order to ignore the multitude of blatant human rights violations against women that have happened under the Kamala Harris administration for the last 4 years, to claim that this is now the candidate that supports women. Are we expected as women to have such short-term memory that we forget about the fact this was the vice president who oversaw the rewriting of Title IX to eviscerate women's only spaces in the United States of America overnight? To say that men can now receive women's academic scholarships, to say that men can now receive women's athletic scholarships, to say that men can now compete in women's sports, to say that men can now take women's athletic championships, to say that men can use all women's bathrooms in educational spaces, to say that men can change their clothes and strip naked in all women's locker room spaces across the country, to say that men can be assigned to sleep with women for an entire academic year in university dorm rooms, to say that men can be assigned to sleep with women in overnight school camping trips, to say that you can transition the gender of your child without notifying parents, or that your male teacher who now identifies as a woman can be your chaperone in American education. Are we going to just forget that that happened under Kamala Harris's supposed feminist leadership? Are we as women supposed to forget that it was the Biden administration under Kamala Harris who in the federal budget rewrote the entire wording surrounding healthcare in the federal budget in government documents to erase the word mother and instead call us birthing people or people who menstruate? Are we going to forget that under the leadership of people like Kamala Harris, men are being employed as women in the Biden cabinet and winning Woman of the Year awards? Are we just supposed to forget that all of this is happening? I guess because they think that we're that effing stupid. because you have a constitutional right, which I still have yet to find anywhere in the Constitution. I've searched high and low, to end the life of your child above all else. And according to Kamala Harris, is, in her words, repeated multiple times during this campaign, the only issue women should remotely be thinking about when it comes to how they vote on November 5th. It's nauseating. And it's pathetic. Because if any of us have remotely a true feminist bone in our body, there's no way in hell we would be supporting this administration. There's no way in hell we would be supporting an all-out abortion campaign for any reason or no reason whatsoever through all 9 months of pregnancy that is also killing women, not just our children. There is no way in hell we would endorse the rewriting of Title IX, the erasure of women in the medical system, and the blatant misogyny that is taking place with the patriarchy taking over feminism itself. But I guess they think they can pull at our heartstrings that significantly by lying to us blatantly that we will just fall for it. That we're that gullible. That we think that little with our brains and are only motivated by our uteruses. It's why, by the way, when women actually do use their brains to think about what is going to be safe for women in America, what is going to be prosperous for women in America, what is going to create a better future for women in America, their only response is that you're stupid. Because they lie about everything else, so why stop lying about that? It's how Kamala campaign surrogates like Mark Cuban go viral for saying that Donald Trump has never once surrounded himself with a strong or intelligent woman. In reality, hold up the frickin' mirror. They are banking on the fact that you are not going to be strong or intelligent, that you will be emotionally weak to the point that intellect goes out the window, and they can manipulate you into doing whatever they want. It is quite literally blatant misogyny. To the point that now, Kamala Harris is just straight up telling you, not only do you need to vote for me, conservative women need to vote for me and just lie to their husbands about it. I don't know if you guys saw this ad that made the rounds on social media last week. Lie to your husbands, I guess, when you hit up the voting booth tomorrow. Genuinely, I can't.
Your turn, honey.
In the one place in America where women still have a right to choose, you can vote any way you want. And no one will ever know.
Did you make the right choice?
Sure did, honey.
Remember, what happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Walls. Vote.
Let's just play that one more time. Instagram, I think you guys couldn't see it, so we'll play it one more time. Listen to what she says right at the beginning. Paid for by the common good for America. Harris Waltz, 2024. Listen to what she says right at the beginning. In the one place in America where what?
Your turn, honey.
In the one place in America where women still have a right to choose, you can vote any way you want. And no one will ever know.
Secret glances of voting for Kamala.
Did you make the right choice?
Sure did, honey.
Remember, what happens in the booth stays in the booth.
What happens in
Vote
the booth
Harris.
stays in the booth. Lie to your husbands, women, because that's the only way to be truly empowered in this particular election. And now, because of all of this, there is a massive TikTok trend about women canceling out their husbands' votes to really support women, to really stand for women. So, I implore you, if you are a woman who has yet to vote in this election and you are remotely on the fence about where your ballot deserves to go, I just want to challenge you with this. Do you truly feel empowered supporting someone who coincidentally also happens to have a vagina? We assume. I suppose we're not supposed to assume the gender of anyone else, but Kamala Harris is beating from the rooftops the noise that she is in fact a woman. So I think it's safe to assume she has a vagina. Are you comfortable being so-called empowered solely for the purpose of voting for someone who shares your genitalia when repeatedly, when over and over and over and over again, that same woman has not remotely hesitated to throw women under the bus? When that same woman can't even answer the question, what is a woman? When federal tax dollars are going towards the erasure of the next generation of women in American educational systems through the literal rewriting of Title IX, which Ruth Bader Ginsburg, by the way, rolling over in her grave over this. When this same woman is lying to you every single day that you're going to be arrested for having a miscarriage, that you're going to be arrested for having an ectopic pregnancy, that some evil Republican sheriff is going to pull you over at the border of your red state if you try to go get an abortion somewhere else, that the very first thing Donald Trump is going to do is an abortion ban, which he has denied, or that his Project 2025, not affiliated with him, is going to criminalize abortion everywhere. Doesn't even remotely mention that in the 900-page document that is Project 2025. Are you comfortable with the fact that Kamala Harris lies to you over and over and over again, that nowhere in America, how many times has she said this during this campaign alone? Nowhere in America are people having abortions through all 9 months of pregnancy, when Planned Parenthood's own research institute, the Guttmacher Institute, tells you themselves about 12,000 abortions in the third trimester of pregnancy happen every single year in America. The vast, vast, vast majority of them for elective purposes. 12,000 innocent children well past the age of viability are in fact dying per year. Hidden from you, lied to you, from the same people that are screaming their heads off about the potential of kids dying in a school shooting. But they don't care about those kids. Are you comfortable with the fact that Kamala Harris says repeatedly infanticide does not exist in the United States of America to reassure you that you're doing the right thing in supporting her, when in fact her own running mate under his term as the governor of Minnesota has supported a law that has allowed at least 8 babies to be born alive from failed abortion attempts to later die on the table and then to be quite literally thrown in the trash? I hope not. Because if I know anything about women, we're strong. We are intelligent. Sorry, Mark Cuban, to shove that up your ass, but it's true. We're intuitive. We're empathetic. We can connect with one another on a powerfully deep level that is unique to women. And I'm so tired of seeing our empathy be manipulated for evil to persist in our broken world. It's disgusting. Because under the guise and behind the facade of emotion, of caring for one another, of compassion, of doing what's right, we are allowing evil, grotesque, abhorrent behavior to become the norm in the United States. And not only are we just supposed to allow it, because feminism, we're supposed to cheer it on louder and louder and louder with every passing day. I don't want to see women conned into clapping like a seal to shout their abortion under the guise of women's rights in America. I don't want to see women manipulated into cheering for women's equality when men win women's athletic championships, win Women of the Year awards, are admitted into sororities, win Miss Universe pageants. I don't want to see women conned into voting for someone who coincidentally shares our genitalia but has done not one singular ounce of effort during her time as Vice President of the United States, as a member of the United States Senate, or any other publicly elected office she has ever held to uplift, support, and empower women. So if you are a woman listening to this, don't fall for the propaganda. Don't give them the satisfaction where they really do think you are that stupid. Don't blindly walk in lockstep authoritarianism with everything the left, who controls education, the media, at this point, social media algorithms, and everything in between, that you have to vote for Kamala Harris or have to support the left because that's what women do. And feel the real empathy in your soul that tells you, whether we want to admit it or not, more often than not we don't want to, these things that they are pushing are wrong. They're wrong. There is a reason it is morally difficult and emotionally uncomfortable for us to talk about child gender transition and abortion and men taking over women's spaces. It's uncomfortable because it's wrong to begin with. Most people don't know this, but a poll was conducted recently by YouGov and our friends over at Students for Life about young voters and their support for restrictions on abortion going into this election. And it found something honestly shocking compared to what the media would like for you to believe, that for voters under the age of 45, 9 in 10 young voters support at least some restrictions on abortion. That is a dramatically different picture than what Kamala Harris is trying to sell you as an all-access abortion campaign at any time for no reason whatsoever. Morally, the fabric of our country is shifting because we know the difference between right and wrong. Our intuition, as women especially, is incredibly powerful if we have the courage to tap into it and then act upon it. Free from manipulation, free from the emotional tugging of our heartstrings, free from the propaganda making us believe because we are women, we have to XYZ. Largely support the American left. They are throwing any and all misinformation your way to see if anything thrown at the wall will stick. Do not give them the satisfaction, especially if there is a tiny inkling of your identity in your soul that would still call yourself a feminist. Speaking of misinformation, by the way, aren't these the same people, largely Kamala Harris and all of her surrogates, claiming that they want to criminalize misinformation and lock us in prison for sharing misinformation on social media and destroy the First Amendment entirely? I guess misinformation only applies to when you criticize the people in current positions of power, because it's not misinformation when they can blatantly lie to you through propagandized campaign videos or write articles like these ones that are completely fabricated and not remotely based in reality. So be very, very clear when you think about misinformation what that actually is going to mean should Kamala Harris win the election this week. God forbid that should happen. But I want to leave you with just a little bit of hope before we close out the show today. And as we head into Election Day 2024, I want you to know I don't think this election is going to be overwhelmingly pro-Kamala the way that the media wants you to believe that it is, particularly with young voters. And I know I'm the apologist for Gen Z. I literally wrote the book on how Gen Z is going to save America that came out earlier this year. But there's an interesting new article that dropped today, actually a few weeks ago, from The Hill, and is making the rounds on social media today about Gen Z voters in particular. The Hill ran a fascinating survey last month that found half of Gen Z voters, half of voters under 27, say that they have publicly lied about who they are voting for. Why you would feel the need to publicly lie about who you're voting for speaks volumes about cancel culture and just how intolerant our society has become. But listen to this. An Axios Vibes survey from last month found half of Generation Z's voters said they have lied about their votes. 48% said they had previously lied to those with whom they are close with about which candidates received their votes. More than double the 23% of registered voters across all age groups that said they had previously done the same. The survey took place October 22nd through 24th, only a few weeks out from Election Day, which will follow a chaotic and heavily polarized campaign season. In this survey, 22% of registered voters in all age groups said that they might lie to someone close about the candidates they cast their ballot for in the 2024 election, but that doubled for Generation Z. Gee, when every single arm of the media and politics and education is trying to ram the agenda down your throat that all young people everywhere unequivocally support the Democrat Party and the left, I wonder why Gen Z would feel the need to lie about their ballot. But are you guys not seeing what I'm seeing on college campuses right now? Are you guys not seeing what I'm seeing at all of these political rallies dominated by young people right now? Are you guys not seeing what I'm seeing with the unbelievably cringy content put out by like 5 Gen Zers on behalf of the Kamala Harris campaign? And then the tsunami of authentic, incredible content put out by Gen Z conservatives across the board, not paid for, by the way. I think tomorrow's results could be incredibly interesting and at the very least provide a whole lot of hope that young people aren't overwhelmingly buying into this blatant propaganda that the left is desperate we buy into, particularly as young women. No matter what happens tomorrow, though, no matter who walks away with a victory for the 2024 campaign, and by the way, I highly doubt we have a result tomorrow, which we'll talk more about here in a second, I also just want to reassure you that it doesn't matter ultimately in the grand scheme of the universe. Of course it's important, but hear me out. It doesn't really matter ultimately who is sitting in the Oval Office of the White House of the United States. Ultimately, the most important thing in the universe is not which political party holds a majority on Capitol Hill in Congress, or who wins a race for prime minister, or winning a parliamentary majority in any of your other countries if you're watching from abroad. No matter what happens, no matter how this thing shakes out, God is still in control. And oddly, I have a really significant sense of peace related to this election that I've never really had going into Election Day in the last several years, working largely in the political space, because I've been praying about it all the time. And I just want to encourage all of you to stay prayed up, to make sure that you are putting the needs of our country before your personal anxieties about who might be president of the United States, because it doesn't matter if Donald Trump is crowned the 47th president of the United States or Kamala Harris. That person is still in desperate need of our prayers. Prayers for wisdom, prayers for discernment to do the right thing even when it's hard, and prayers to enact God's will in the world even when that's not the popular thing to do. I shared this on Instagram earlier today, but you guys know I love Hallow. Hallow has totally transformed my prayer life as America's largest Christian prayer app, and it's made a huge difference for so many of you as well. Today, actually, they launched a brand new prayer challenge called One Nation Under God leading into election week so that we can all have a whole lot more peace and clarity about everything going on in the uncertainty and anxiety of this week. I started praying it this morning. I know a bunch of you guys have as well. I highly, highly encourage you to check it out. But tomorrow, I want to invite you in particular to a very special live stream that we are going to be doing tomorrow evening. Unlike literally everyone that wants to stream all night long for like 12 hours, we are not going to be doing that for Election Day 2024. They've already told us we're not going to have a result tomorrow night, so it seems a little pointless to wait around for 12 hours for a landslide victory when all of the media outlets are preemptively telling us we will not have an answer for you tomorrow night. But B, everyone else is already going to be doing that in the media space. So tomorrow evening, right as polls are closing on the East Coast, I'll post a whole lot more about this tomorrow, we are going to do a very special prayer vigil together on the live stream. If you are feeling incredibly anxious about what the heck is going to happen in America, or you think that our leaders just need a little bit more spiritual guidance, wherever you're coming from, please consider joining us. We'll be talking about the first incoming batch of polls as polls close tomorrow, and we will be praying together as a truth seeker community for the future of the West and whoever becomes the 47th president of the United States. I love you all so very much. Be bold, be courageous. Don't fall for the lies and the propaganda. And women in particular, do not blindly hand these people your vote because they literally could not think less of you. Don't forget on your way out to smash that follow or subscribe button, and we will be back tomorrow evening to pray together for the future of our country. Happy Monday, and we'll see you then.